Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Simply Fit. I'm your host, Sandy White, your number one health and wellness cheerleader. And we have Jake uh, Shumate on here. I said it right. Yes.
Yeah, good job. It's all right.
And he's going to be telling you guys about his joy bus. So I also, before we get started, want to thank WYTV7 Community Broadcasters Network for allowing Simply Fit to be on their platform for a third season. We are on a mission to save 1 million lives by encouraging individuals to live a simply fit life through health and nutrition. This allows them to overcome suicide and depression. So we are so grateful that WYTV7 allows us to come on and share all of the information that we have to save as many lives as possible. So before we got started, I did let you guys know that we have Jake Shumate on to talk about his Joy Bus. But guys, he has been a firefighter for over 15 years. He owns and operates the Joy Bus Journey, and you can check him out on www.joybus joybusjourney.com. And just to let you guys know what he does with all of his episodes, he's online and he is an online food show expert. And each of his shows, he basically shares with you guys simple, fun ways that you can stay healthy. And the reason he does the Joy Bus is so that you can get information about different farms, different places to get healthy, fresh food from. And and guys, he does all of this in a 1973 VW bus that he calls the Joy Bus. So we're going to welcome Jake to the show so he can tell you guys more about being healthy and the importance of eating fresh foods. Welcome to the show, Jake.
Sandy, thanks so much for having me. Yeah, that's a mouthful. Joybusjourneys.com followed by Jake Shumate that's just nobody ever gets it right. So don't worry about it.
Well, thank you for being so kind.
Of
So
course.
let's start out explaining to. So before I get into all of the juicy questions to help people follow you and learn more about it, are you
Yeah.
still a full time firefighter?
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Oh my God, that's a
I'm
lot
off.
of work that you're doing, and I just want to thank you for your service. And I mean, because you're doing double duty.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
how does all of this play into your mission and why? Because you also have a family, a
Yeah,
growing family.
I do. I have 3 kids and a dog that sometimes is my favorite child. We'll see. But yeah, so it's really, I had my own journey with health. And when I was a kid, I was really skinny. Like when I was in high school, I was just, guys would make fun of me because I was so, so skinny. And then I kind of had a health crisis, and I really saw how the way that we eat affects so much of who we are as a whole person, meaning our heart and our soul and our mind and our body. Everything that we are is affected by what we eat, and it kind of goes both ways. And then over the years, I've just seen people that I'm like, you should be healthy. You're young, and they're not. And so I wanted to create something. I wanted to have a creative outlet where I could go around and share with folks just really simple ways to be healthy, because it feels mysterious and difficult. And there's so many opinions out there about, you should only be a vegan, or you should you should do keto, or you should do this. And through my own experimentation for over a decade, close friend of mine is a naturopath who's helped me so much just through my own reading. Like, I just had to get it out. I just had to share it with folks. So part of it's my mission. Part of it is, I love my bus. I love to eat good food, and I like to tell people about it. So definitely all about sharing that with as many people as possible, wherever they are in the world.
So I'm trying to do because I got a lot that I want to ask. Part of I'm just being nosy, which
Yeah.
the viewers are too. But so you mentioned that being a firefighter and a paramedic taught
Uh-huh.
you about health and wellness, and I can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So, being in the fire service is kind of a weird thing. Like, you go to your doctor, and your doctor's never seen your house before, right? Like, you go to the doctor, he doesn't know what it looks like, where you live. He doesn't know, what the inside of your house looks like. When you call 911, because you're having some kind of medical emergency and I show up, I get to see everything. I mean, I see the way the inside of your house looks. We look for your medications. And so over the years, I just began to observe how people lived. And there's this correlation between what you consume, whether it's the food that you eat or what you watch on the internet or you watch on TV, and how well you're living, how much energy you have, how much vitality you have. So that really just became because of my observation when I go into people, because my job as a paramedic is somebody calls, they're having chest pain, they're having chest discomfort. I got to go in a really quick manner, assess them, find out, do I think they're having a heart attack or not? What kind of interventions am I going to do in just a couple of minutes? And then I get to intervene. And my goal is really to help you get to the hospital, to reverse whatever's going on in an emergency. But what I began to see was that so many people, I think, could avoid being my patient if they change the way that they live. So really my goal is for people to never need me as a firefighter paramedic. I mean, that's the goal. Like if you can live your life so you never have to call 911. And I mean, people get in car accidents and things happen. So I'm not saying we have to eliminate 911 because that'll never go away. But just that I go on these chronic patients with chronic diseases and I'm thinking, how come I'm here and you're in your mid 50s and you're in a wheelchair, you live in a convalescent home and all these things. And I just don't think people understand that they can make some really simple choices that can help them feel a lot better.
Now, I know you were talking about health and the environment, they're one and the same, but I also know with what you just shared, you know, as a paramedic, you get to go into people's homes and you can see where they're making the hiccups at. But I also know you can't just go in as one profession, help them out, and then in another profession say, hey, let me help you out, you know, because I see you're jacked up in this, you know, but you can't do that. So how do you make the shift? And before you answer that, when I was looking at some of your episodes, the two that I enjoyed the most, I think would be, in my opinion, would be very beneficial for a lot of people just to get started. And it was just kind of ironic. The one that's 9 that I was telling you about that's kirking out right now, probably because, you know, just being closed in, not seeing their friends. He has been asking to start a farm. And I'm like, dude, that's a lot of work. But when I saw the one about the, what is that, sand and straw, the farm that you're doing, it's totally different from what I was used to. And then you show the audience, once you take the fresh food, how to actually cook it, which is totally awesome for your body versus going, and I'm originally from Missouri, so I'm used to that. But then when I moved to Maryland, they weren't doing what I was used to. And then I got hooked into the craziness. So back to the original question of health and the environment and what you do, how do you make the shift to get these people, not all of them, but how do you get them to shift over to doing farm to table and getting themselves healthy?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think there's many misconceptions about what health looks like. And so if you were around in the 80s and the early 90s, you remember that we really thought that health looked like low fat foods. So you would go eat a Snackwell cookie. It didn't have any fat in it. It had barely any sugar. It had a ton of carbohydrates. It had a bunch of ingredients that you had no idea what it looked like. You could probably leave it on the shelf for months and months and months and it would never go bad. And so us as a society felt like that's what was really healthy for folks. But what we've seen is the fruit of that that's really not healthy. And so what we have begun to observe is that when we eat things that are in their most simple form. So when we went to sand and straw, what I wanted to show folks is that this is what really a healthy farm looks like. And that's another misconception that we have. So if you're from Missouri, I've been in Missouri a few times, is that you have these monocrops, these rows and rows of corn, for example, and you have acres and acres of that. And so we think that's what a farm looks like. When you watch the sand and straw episode, what you see is there's fruit trees, and then there's some berries, and then there's some ground cover, and then they're growing lettuce and kale, and then they're growing something else. And so it's this idea of regenerative farming, and regenerative farming looks at the earth and looks at the soil and looks at the health from a big picture and says, how do we combine all these things together so that we can make the earth healthy and so we can make people healthy? And so they don't spray any chemicals on there. They don't even till the soil. So tilling the soil is where, usually drag the tractor behind there. And every year you want to flip the soil over, because what they're learning is that microbiome, all of those that bacteria and those good little things that are living in the soil, we want to keep those in. And when we drag the till through there, we flip that over, those all die. And so what happens is, like with sand and straw, is that soil gets so healthy and that microbiome gets so healthy, and that translates into the food. So what you eat actually has more nutrients in it. So you might go to the store and you look at one piece of fruit versus another, and it doesn't look any different to you, but one's got chemicals on it and a lower nutritional value, versus on the other side, this one has no chemicals on it and it has more nutrients in it, has more vitamins in it. And so when we look at how to farm in a different way, what we do is we make the planet healthy and we make people healthy. And the greatest polluter on the planet is agriculture. And so, there's a big movement here in California that says everybody should drive an electric car and all these things. But if we don't deal with the agriculture problem, if we don't deal with let's stop putting all these pesticides and tilling and all these things, is that we will never solve the environmental crisis. Wherever you stand on the political, whether you think, the global warming is true or not, it doesn't matter. That agriculture needs to become the central focus for us, as for the wellness of our planet, and then the wellness for you and I and my patients and your listeners and all of that. And the crazy thing is, it's not a big change. It's not a big shift. And it can make a dramatic impact for folks on the way that they feel. And it really helps the planet. So it's really cool. And if your son's interested in farming, that's what you want to look up. You want to look up something about regenerative farming. And it's just the way that you would really do things kind of an old school way, like a traditional way that maybe our grandparents or our great grandparents would have farmed back in the day. And so that becomes the focus of so much of of my show. So it's not just about the food. Like, we're going to go to restaurants, and we're going to show you restaurants that are doing food differently, like all gluten-free, or a place that's only getting ingredients that are from sustainably sourced meats or regenerative farms and all that kind of stuff. But I want people to see, when they go to the store, what are they buying and what's the difference? We just filmed an episode last week at a place called Happy Hens, and they have the #1 rated egg in the country. And the reason that it's #1 rated is because of the way the chickens live, what the chickens eat, the way the eggs are processed and all that. And if you go to the store, Sandy, that's the thing. It's going to come in a nice carton. There's going to be one next to you. It's got a picture of a farm on it. You're going to feel all nice and warm on the inside because you think you're buying some great thing. But the truth is those chickens are raised in a giant warehouse that never get outside. And you can call those free range. But we don't know. So we're going to places like Happy Hens, and I'm showing folks, no, this is how a chicken is supposed to be raised. And then to answer the question of why is that important, and sharing why is it important for your health and why is that important for the planet. And the thing too is it tastes so much better. Like, in the end, it's really delicious. That's the part of it. So many folks think, well, eating healthy looks like a big slimy glob of tofu. Like, tofu can taste delicious, but let me tell you, I had their eggs this morning for breakfast, and they're incredible. They are incredible. You could see the difference once you crack those eggs. So that's the mission for us with Joy Bus Journeys, is to go around and help people to understand that every time you go to the store and you buy something, you're voting. Does that make sense? So, like, if you go and you say, well, I'm going to buy these eggs instead of these eggs, meaning the regenerative farm versus the conventionally raised, you buy that regenerative farm, you tell the buyer that says, this is important to me, and we want to find more companies like that to go out and support more people. And we let the economy actually dictate what's important by us by the way that we spend our money.
Okay, so stay in the same vein, because I got possibly three questions. Okay, so how are there regenerative farms that are listed on the website where people can go and shop right away? That's number one. If there are, but they're only in a certain area like California where you are, in the grocery store, how can a person tell if, because you gave the example of the fruits being side by side, looking the same, but one has got a bunch of pesticide and one does not. They don't always have stickers on them. And like one of the eggs that I thought, and you're probably going to tell me is wrong. We can't say the name, but it starts with the E, ends with land. So I'm thinking these are great, but based off of what you're sharing, yes. So how, as a consumer, would we be able to pick the right thing? Because that basically would help folks, make small, healthy changes. What are the key things we need to look into?
Well, so a couple things. One is there's a really easy thing out there called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. And you can look it up online, and the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen is an easy way for folks to know where they should be spending their money, because there are things that you don't need to spend. You don't need to buy organic. Like, you don't need to buy organic avocados. Avocados, for the most part, are not sprayed. They have that nice thick skin. But then there's things out there like strawberries and celery and spinach that is really important that you should only buy those organic. And when it has that little USDA symbol on it that says that it's organic, they've had to jump through a lot of hoops. It doesn't mean that there's no pesticides on it. It just means that there's much less, and those are approved. So that's an easy way to go. We used to go to the grocery store. We had a little wallet size Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen. You can, really easy to look it up and to see who's, what you should spend your money on, because generally organic is more expensive. Now, the other part of it is that folks want to try to look for somebody that's local. Local is really important. And why it's important is because, like, if I pick a strawberry that's here local where I am at in Southern California, it's picked later. Versus if you buy a strawberry that's from California, it's got to ship all the way across the country. And when they pick that, it's not ripe yet. So you've lost that nutritional value. There's a lot of things they do to preserve it, like tomatoes, for example. This is horrible, but most tomatoes are picked when they're green so they can transport. When just prior to giving it to you, they gas it so it changes color, so it's red. So you're not even eating a ripe tomato. So if you can buy local, so go to your farmer's market, and there's everywhere I've ever traveled, there's farmer's market. And so, and it's all regional. So that's good. Ask your local farmers, or go find out Sand and Straw, like a place like Sand and Straw. You can go to this cornucopia website. You can look it up, and they rate all these. They go through it, and they let you know on a scale that's, on how well they think that farm's doing. So you have to do a little bit of research. And then when you find that farm, when you find that place, ask them, hey, what do you use? Do you spray anything on your strawberries or whatever it is? And figure out how that farm is actually running. And as soon as you ask them these questions, these farmers get really excited about it, because if they are a regenerative farmer, if they're an organic farmer, they love to share about it. So you've got to get to know your farmer the best that you can. You can find small farms doing something called CSA boxes, which is a community supported agriculture. Basically, you pay a fee every month. You can, and then whatever is in season, you just go pick up, or they have it delivered to you. So, and once you trust the farm, that thing just shows up, and then you get to figure out how to eat that really well. So I highly recommend supporting your local farmers like that. And it's not just California; they are everywhere. And one of the East Coast has got a ton of regenerative farming, and that's actually kind of the birthplace for it in the United States. And it's moved over here into California, where a lot of folks have really grabbed onto that, because the consumer sees that as a value. And so you can look for that. What was the other question? You wanted to know about eggs, or what was the other question?
Yeah. So how do we tell the difference with the egg?
Yeah, eggs are tricky. So let's just talk about what, the terms that are on there. Don't look at the picture. That doesn't mean anything. So free range means that the chicken is not in a cage. You can also use the words cage free. That still doesn't mean that they are out wandering around like when we filmed last week, where they're literally pecking in the dirt and what you and I might think of like a chicken farm, versus, there are 3 or 4 chickens stacked on top of each other. It's just not healthy for the chicken, and it's not healthy for us to consume those eggs. And so what you want to look for is pasture raised. Now, pasture Pasture raised is not super regulated, so you got to be careful with it. But you can go on that cornucopia website and you can look up the farm in your area to see if they meet the criteria for being on there. And that would look at what they're fed, the way that they live, the way that the eggs are processed, all those things. But if you just are like, I don't have time for that, Jake, how do I do it? When you go to your grocery store, when you go to your natural food store, you want to look for something that says pasture raised. And if you get a second, a lot of these places that are doing pasture raised, you can look up on their website. They'll have pictures of it, so you can get an idea. And then once you find the product that you like, keep buying that. Keep letting the folks that are buying the food from the distributors or the farmers know, like, this is a value to us, and we'll pay a couple extra dollars for pasture raised eggs. So it is tricky, and you definitely you kind of have to do a little bit of work to find out what's in your food. And you definitely have to read those ingredient labels too, like when you go to the store and you buy something. And I tell folks a lot of times, if you flip over that product and you're like, I have no idea what the heck this is, don't eat it. Just don't eat it. Really easy. If it looks like food, that's almost always better than something that comes out of a bag or a box that you're like, I don't know if this is food or not. So,
right. So guys, we are down to our last 5 minutes, and I have enjoyed talking with Jake. So I want to make sure you guys will be able to check out all of the episodes. And Jake, real quick, give 2 tips on eating healthy, and then tell them exactly how they can reach you, and then I'll close out.
All right. So 2 easy tips on how to be healthy is see what goes in your mouth and then see how you feel. If you eat something and you don't feel well afterwards, that's usually an indicator of that is probably not good for you. And then, like I said just a second ago, is that if it looks like real food, that's much better than something that comes out of a box or a bag. There's lots of folks out there that you can follow on Instagram that will help you kind of make some of these decisions with it. And if you can always buy organic, for the most part, that's usually a good thing. And then I would say, if you want to be able to find me, go to joybusjourney.com. You can follow me on Instagram, or you can follow me on Facebook. Give tons of tips for easy ways on how to be healthy wherever you are in the country.
Well, Jake, we have enjoyed talking with you guys. And if you are just getting in, you got to get the replay. I'm Sandy White, the host of Simply Fit, your #1 health and wellness cheerleader. We broadcast every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. on WYTV7.org Community Broadcasters Network. Until next week, we'll see you later. And thank you, Jake, for coming on to the show.
Thanks for having me, Sandy.